In this video, I'm going to talk about every single cameo on The Rookie, whether they were a musician, a professional sports player, alumni from other Nathan Fillion shows, and even a freaking billionaire. Trust me, this is going to be a ride, so let's just get into it. I'm going to start with musicians and other celebrities that are adjacent to music. First up, we have to go to the intro of Season 1, Episode 19, The Checklist, where the first musician cameo was made by will.i.am. A silent alarm was made to a mansion and Nolan and Bishop responded to it. They don't find anyone inside as they're going through, but Nolan spots a man hanging from a tree in the backyard. will.i.am comes out asking if they have a warrant, and when he hears about the guy's plan to go to Selena Gomez's house, he refuses to say where she lives and goes back inside, and Nolan freaks out about seeing him. It's actually really funny. The next one is a triple whammy. We have Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, and Luke Bryan all playing themselves in the intro of Season 2, Episode 16, The Overnight. Which, hey, I've never talked about this episode before, so that's pretty cool. When Tim and Lucy were arresting a man auditioning for American Idol, Lucy gets thrown into the audition room herself and is met by Lionel, Katy, and Luke as the judges. She says, screw it, and decides to sing for them since she's already there. But after she finishes, Tim calls for her and she leaves before she could hear their ratings. Since we just talked about those three, we should also quickly mention Ryan Seacrest, who was involved in this scene as well. He tried talking Lucy through her nerves, thinking that she was nervous, but she was just trying to tell him that she wasn't auditioning. Too bad, he didn't listen, and he threw her in there for the other three to tear her apart. Ruthless. Now we have to jump all the way to Season 5, Episode 12, Death Notice's intro, because we have Kelly Clarkson's appearance up next. When at the hospital with balloons, Kelly is waiting for the elevator, but as she's trying to get down, Nolan and Selena hop in too. Then Aaron and Gray, then Tim and Lucy, where Lucy actually recognizes her, and last but not least, here comes Harper and Lopez. This one was simple but very memorable. We don't have to go far to find our next cameo, and it's not in the intro this time. In Season 5, Episode 18, Double Trouble, we get the cameo appearance of Lance Bass from NSYNC. After Jake goes missing, Sava calls up the LAPD, and Nolan and Selena respond. She lets them in, and it cuts to Lance Bass talking about how he hired Jake to hold down the house and then hired Sava to be his centralist. But then he fired both of them after they had sex on every flat surface in his house and stole his stuff, but he didn't find that out until afterwards. Moving on from musicians, we're going to talk about some professional athletes, and then we'll talk about other celebrities in the sports and media industries. First up, we have Eric Weddle and Robert Woods in Season 2, Episode 7, Safety. I put both of them in the same section because they were in the same scene. Both Eric and Robert went up to Tim and Jackson while they were volunteer coaching for the Watts Rams. Tim used to play against Eric in high school, and Robert was just there with him. Eric and Robert played for the Los Angeles Rams at the time of this episode airing, so the community team name fits perfectly. Next, we have Kike Hernandez, an MLB player that made a cameo in Season 7, Episode 17, Mutiny in the Bounty. This cameo happens towards the end of the episode, where as a token of gratitude, Skip Tracer Randy hires Kike to hang out with Tim for a few hours. Tim just wants to throw around a ball the whole time, and while Kike was confused, he just went along with it. This one was really wholesome. Now we're going to move on to the sports and media industries with Cooper Manning, who played himself in Season 7, Episode 14, Mad About Murder, also at the end of the episode. Cooper Manning shows up at the LAPD versus LAFD flag football game as the head coach of the LAPD team. He initially tries to make a complex strategy, but as soon as Miles comes up, he just tells them to all throw him the ball and they go with it. It's a small cameo, but it made sense. Our next section is going to be cameos made by actors who used to play roles in Castle alongside Nathan Fillion. Nathan was known to bring back cast members from his previous shows because he always gets close with anyone he works with. Well, except for one person, but this isn't Castle Central, so I'm not going to go into that. Let's start with Seamus Dever's guest appearance in Season 2, Episode 3, The Bet, where he played a character named Chaz Bachman, a man who is buying drugs from a dealer. Instead of taking down the dealer, since there's so many of them, the plan is to put a chokehold on business by going for the buyers. Lopez and Nolan head up to the car, and initially, Chaz tries to say that the pills are for Councilwoman Langston. Sleep aids, he called them. But then after Nolan starts ringing up her office, he confesses to them being his. He's about to yap about the constant pressure that he's always under, but Nolan interrupts him and says to get out and they're locking him up, to which he complies. This isn't the only major castle cameo in this episode, as John Huertas also makes an appearance in this episode as Alejandro Mejia, an undercover DHS agent who was working a case that went MIA. He was found and rushed to the hospital by Nolan, and while Alejandro was in the hospital, he was going to be transferred by a nurse. However, this nurse was an imposter working for the same group that Alejandro was a part of, and they made their escape. Nolan had to chase after them and eventually catches up with Alejandro, where he is being threatened for passwords. Nolan jumps in and tries to save the day, but when Nolan is about to get shot, Alejandro saves him with Nolan's backup gun. As someone who's currently watching Castle, rewatching this episode and seeing both John and Seamus was awesome. The rest of the Castle cameos aren't just brief cameos. They have made more than one appearance, and in the case of a couple of people, they became full-on recurring characters. So next up, we have Molly C. Quinn, who played Ashley in 2 different episodes, one in Season 3 and one in Season 5. Ashley is the daughter of Oscar Hutchinson. She was sent to prison for false kidnapping, but she suffers from a kidney infection after being released. The LAPD manages to get Oscar to offer up his kidney, and that operation is a success. However, she snaps out of her criminal mind after her new boyfriend overdoses, and decides to stop sending Oscar money and moves on with her life. Next up, we have Tamala Jones, who plays Aaron Thorson's mom, Yvonne, throughout 2 episodes of Season 4. She was first introduced in Endgame to talk to Aaron about developing a reality show based on their family, but it was more about Aaron's false murder case and to clear his name. He didn't want to, but she went with it anyway. And we see a part of it in the documentary episode Real Crime that delves more into said case. But since then, we have not seen her again. I'm gonna lump together Tox Alagundoy, who played Professor Fiona Ryan throughout Season 3, and Annie Wershing, who played Rosalind Dyer throughout most of the middle of the show. I'm not going to talk about them further though, because when you have season-long or even multiple season-long arcs, you're not a cameo anymore. However, I felt if I didn't mention them, I'd get comments about it. So here you go. I also want to talk about a couple of other actors who made cameos in The Rookie that acted in Firefly alongside Nathan Fillion as well. The first one that cameoed was Sean Mayer, who played Caleb Jost in the Season 1 episode Manhunt. Sean Mayer was one of the escaped convicts from the prison bus crash, alongside Oscar Hutchinson and others. While pretty much everyone else was rounded up pretty easily, Caleb was not as easy to take custody of. He held a woman hostage in her own home with a massive contraption while he held onto the string next to the fireplace. Nolan and the others tried talking Caleb down, but it wasn't working. That is, until they called his bluff, knowing that he wouldn't do it. He lets go of the string, and he is recaptured. Sean wasn't the only one though. Alan Tudyk also made a couple of guest appearances in the show, one in Season 2 and one at the end of Season 4. Both playing a character named Elroy Basso, a crime scene cleaner that Nolan meets while he's babysitting a scene of his own on his birthday. They celebrate together and become friends, but a shootout occurs when the people who committed the crime come back and finish the job. Nolan apprehends them, and Elroy is safe too. Then, in the episode Day in the Hole from Season 4, when Nolan is sent to Frontera for the week, Elroy comes along for that. He even takes out one of the bad guys in the gang that Nolan and everyone has to fight. It was really cool to see them bring him back, and I want them to do it again as soon as possible. And now, there's a bunch of miscellaneous cameos that don't really have a specific spot, or are just well-known actors. First, we have Felicia Day, who appeared in the Season 1 finale and Season 2 premiere as a health official working against the virus attack. She and Nathan Fillion actually starred in Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog all the way back in 2008. Next up, we have Frankie Muniz, who played Corey Harris in the Season 3 documentary episode True Crime. Corey Harris was a cult leader that was brutally murdered, which is what the documentary was about. This episode put Frankie in the Rookie history books by being in the precedent-setting episode. It wasn't a good precedent, but a precedent nonetheless. Our third miscellaneous cameo was from Stephen Lang, who played Chief Trent Williams in Season 1, Episode 19, The Checklist. Bishop was being reprimanded for the omission of her failing brother on her LAPD application, but Nolan came in to defend her. Even if we don't know if what Nolan did helped or hurt her case, it was still a powerful scene that Stephen was a part of. Although it's strange that they never brought him back if he's supposed to be Chief. Instead, they replaced him with a different Chief. And now, we're going to talk about the elusive cameo from the multi-billionaire Mark Cuban in Season 2, Episode 1, Impact, where he played himself. It was about 11 minutes into the episode, where he filed a complaint against a guy who was pitching a product to him during his meal and wouldn't leave him alone. Nolan and Gray have to make the guy leave, and before Nolan and Gray move on, Nolan tries to tell him about his invention.
Actually, when I was in construction, I invented my own, it's sort of a fast binder, but the difference is the heat sink. You know what, never mind. You have a nice day.
I think this cameo is my favorite in the show. Anyway, those were all of the major cameos made by celebrities of all kinds in The Rookie. Make sure to hype up this video if you're on mobile to show me some love, and subscribe to see more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.